If you want to understand the essence of George Meredith, you have to understand that he didn't see social life as a series of polite interactions, but as a kind of quiet, psychological warfare. In his complete short works, Meredith moves away from the grand, sweeping landscapes of his epic novels to focus on something much more claustrophobic and, in many ways, more intense: the small, sharp skirmishes of the drawing room, the marriage market, and the battle for reputation. The stories in this collection don't follow one single protagonist, but they are held together by a recurring tension. It is the struggle between what a person actually is, their natural impulses, their raw emotions, their true character, and the artificial mask they have to wear to survive in a rigid, judgmental society. Meredith is interested in how people use wit, satire, and even social scandal as weapons to dismantle one another, and how those same social structures can act as both a shield and a prison. One of the most vivid ways he explores this is through the character of General Ople. The general is a retired military officer who just wants a quiet, dignified life at his estate, Douro Lodge. He thinks he knows how the world works. There is order, there is respect, and there is peace. But that peace is shattered when Lady Camper arrives. Lady Camper is a fascinating, formidable presence. She is a 70-year-old widow who has mastered the art of staying relevant. She uses her wealth, her sharp wit, and a very carefully maintained youthful appearance to command every room she enters. She doesn't just enter a social circle, she conducts a siege on it. She takes a particular interest in the general, but not in a romantic sense. Instead, she uses satire to strip him of his dignity. She creates these biting, humiliating pen and ink caricatures of him that mock his military stiffness and his attempts at being a gentleman. It's a psychological dismantling. As the general watches his own dignity being turned into a joke, he undergoes a strange transformation. He finds himself physically declining under the weight of her witchcraft, yet he also finds a strange, almost addictive vitality in his own submission. He ends up accepting a subordinate role, becoming a sort of picturesque companion to her. He trades his autonomy for the excitement of being part of her orbit. It's a subtle, unsettling look at how people sometimes find purpose in being conquered by a stronger personality. While the general is dealing with Lady Camper, we see a much darker side of social manoeuvring in the story of the Duchess of Dewlap. Here, the stakes aren't just dignity, but survival and reputation. The Duchess is a young woman of rustic, unpolished beauty. She is being managed by Bew Beamish, a man trying to navigate the volatile waters of high society, and Chloe, a dignified woman who has fallen from her own high social standing and now serves as a companion. The tension in this story comes from the collision of different worlds. The Duchess's natural, impulsive energy is a threat to the carefully constructed social order Beamish is trying to maintain. When old flames reappear and scandals begin to brew, ranging from whispers about tainted lace to dramatic confrontations with fortune-tellers, the social pressure becomes unbearable. The story reaches a tragic climax when Chloe, feeling she has become nothing more than a ghost of her former self, realizes she is caught in a web of potential scandal and romantic collision. To prevent a violent, public disaster between the men involved, she commits suicide. It's a heavy, sobering moment that shows the lethal consequences of a society where a single slip in reputation can be fatal. Meredith also takes us to the coastal setting of Quickswitch, where the warfare is driven by money and the fear of the past. This is where we meet Martin Tinman, a man driven by an almost frantic social ambition. He is a man of new money, and he is constantly trying to bridge the gap between his wealth and the established social standing he craves. He finds out a secret about his old schoolmate, Van Diemen Smith. That Van Diemen was once a military deserter. Instead of using this information for friendship, Tinman uses it as blackmail. He tries to force a marriage between his son and Van Diemen's daughter, Annette, to secure his own social standing. Annette is caught in the middle of this. She has feelings for a gentle man named Herbert Fellingham, but she is also a pragmatically aware young woman who understands that her family's survival depends on the social position her father is trying to build. In the end, she makes the difficult, self-sacrificing choice to marry Tinman, choosing social security over personal passion. The climax of this tension comes during a violent storm that batters the coast. The storm acts as a great leveler. As the waves crash against the house, the veneer of respectability that Tinman has worked so hard to build begins to peel away. In the chaos, His true, treacherous nature is revealed when he tries to destroy a letter that would expose his malice. The storm doesn't just destroy property, it strips away the masks, leaving the characters exposed to the reality of their own characters. Finally, the collection touches on the intense, almost predatory nature of romantic pursuit through the figures of Astrea and Arden. Astrea is a widow who has used her status as a shield, creating a space where she can maintain her intellectual and spiritual independence. But her uncle, Homeware, is a man who views her autonomy as an obstacle to be cleared. He acts like a cunning fox, setting up a high-stakes ultimatum. Astrea must choose between a marriage that secures her social position or a permanent, lonely separation from the man she actually cares for, Arden. The stories in this collection often leave us in these moments of profound suspense. We see characters caught between the marriage ring and the portmanteau, the choice between the social contract of marriage and the practical, often cold, realities of social survival. When we look at these stories together, a clear pattern emerges. Meredith is obsessed with the idea of the mask. He shows us how women in particular often have to use wit and social maneuvering to exert power in a world that gives them very little formal authority. He shows us how men can lose their sense of self by trying too hard to maintain a certain image. There is a recurring theme of nature versus artifice. You see it in the Duchess's unpolished beauty versus the polished, artificial world of the Wells. You see it in the General's natural dignity being eroded by Lady Camper's artificial, satirical world. Meredith suggests that while the natural impulse is what makes us human, the artificial rules of society are the forces that actually shape our destinies. It is a cynical view, perhaps, but it is also a deeply psychological one. He isn't just interested in whether people are good or bad. He is interested in how the pressure of being respectable forces good people to do terrible things, or how it forces them to abandon the very things that make them whole. Ultimately, Meredith's short work suggests that social life is a battlefield where the weapons are not swords, but reputations, whispers, and the subtle art of the insult. Whether it is the tragic end of Chloe or the pragmatic sacrifice of Annette, the message is the same. The social laws of the Victorian era were a form of terrorism that dictated the limits of human freedom. We see characters fighting to keep their true selves alive, while the world around them demands they play a part in a much larger, much more unforgiving play.